Tēnā koutou katoa. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Ryman Healthcare's full-year results presentation for the year ended 31 March 2018. I'm David Kerr, the Chairman of Ryman Healthcare, and to my right I have Gordy McLeod, our Chief Executive Officer, and beyond him Dave Bennett, our CFO. So the format this morning will include a bit of an overview from me, followed by presentations then by Gordy and then by Dave. Gordy's going to give you a review of the operational progress of the year and discuss some of the challenges we've experienced, the worst of which was the tragic death of on one of our construction sites of a young man, Mr. Graham Rabbits, who had much of his life ahead of him. Gordy will also give you some of his views on what lies ahead for the company in the next couple of years, and David will give you greater detail on the financial results. Now, you will note that we're each wearing pink shirts today, and that's to support Pink Shirt Day, which is a global day and which every year workplaces, schools, organisations and individuals join that movement to make a stand against bullying. At the end of the presentation, we want to open up for questions from the floor, and then following that we'll take questions from callers on the conference call line. We'll bring you a microphone if you're in the room so that everybody can hear you and so that people on the conference call can also hear you. For those of you listening on a phone conference, the operator will advise you when you can ask a question. So we anticipate wrapping up around 9:45 or so. So the board are more than satisfied with the full-year result. I think it's fair to describe the results as a very solid result. The numbers are before you, and to a degree they speak for themselves, and Dave will talk you through them in greater detail later. But it's certainly been a very pleasing year, and we've got some great villages well on the way. We've got some great sites which are now acquired and at various stages in the consenting and construction sequence, and we've also made good progress on a number of other fronts in an operational sense. So the headline numbers were that the underlying profit rose 14.2% to $203.5 million. The IFRS reported profit, including the revaluations, is up 8.8% to $388.2 million. And the full-year dividend has been lifted 14.6% to 20.4 cents per share, meaning we'll pay a final dividend of 10.9 cents per share on June 22 with a record date of June 8th. The assets currently sit at $5.8 billion, so our balance sheet continues to be strong. Some of you might recall that at the time of the half-year result I mentioned the fact that as a company and as a board we are very focused on taking a long-term view as opposed to being concerned about short-term results that are frequently the discussion that ensues. We're prepared to invest in areas and activities where the returns may yet be some years away because we know this company is special, both in terms of what is its purpose, also in terms of how it's performed over time and how we believe it will continue to perform in the future. So Gordy's going to talk to you about some of these investments that we've been making because we are investing to make the task of caring for our residents even better. One of the measures that's often applied to company performance, of course, is TSR, or total shareholder return. And indeed, that's important, but I quite like the other TSR, which is the importance for a board to focus on talent, strategy and risk. We support the view that focusing on those three areas will greatly increase the chances of increasing total shareholder return. Risk management is embedded in the day-to-day thinking of our people, and so risk is regularly reviewed by the board, of course. A big focus of the company over the past year has been on our people, their capability and growing our talent pool. Gordy will expand on this, but risk and talent have appropriate attention. When I think of strategy, I'm thinking more about the strategic direction that the company is headed on. This, of course, can be, and often is, copied. We see this in our sector not uncommonly. As a company, we've talked about providing a continuum of care or a fully integrated village with emphasis on the word fully. It needs to be noted we really do provide the whole range of options, from independent apartments to adequate numbers of service departments and rest home beds, hospital beds and dementia care beds. Every village we have built since 2007 has had secure dementia care, and wherever we can, we have added in dementia care to existing villages. We've now been providing dementia care for 25 years. 50% of all our beds and units are care-related, so there's not a token number of care beds. We aim to provide certainty that we can provide appropriate care to our residents, and we also see a sense of social responsibility to the communities that we live in, by seeing that we provide that full spectrum of care to them also, if at all possible. So this is our strategy, and it has been for as long as I can recall. However, what cannot be copied is the culture. Strategy actually sets the direction clearly, but it's the culture that really is the kicker and drives the performance along. McKinsey suggests that companies that have top quartile cultures, as measured by an organisational health index, will outperform median companies by 60% on total shareholder return, and lower quartile companies by 200% on total shareholder return. The saying is, of course, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I always think of this particular picture, where the tourist strategy was to see the animals, but the culture they should have adopted is one where you're always very aware of everything around you and your surroundings because you're in a game park. I mention culture because that's something that's always discussed at the board table, but also because one of the important announcements today is that Kevin Hickman is retiring as a director as of 1 June. Now, clearly, we're very sad to see his retirement, but we most sincerely wish him well. To be fair, he's served the company continuously for nigh on 35 years, so it'd be hard to argue that he hasn't earned a break. He stayed on over the last year to assist Gordy with the transition he's made to be Chief Executive, and Kevin wholly feels confident that the business and the team generally are in great shape and that the values and the culture that underpin the business are in good heart. It's difficult to know where to start when thinking of describing how he's contributed to this company, but clearly as a co-founder, as a managing director, and as a director, he's been mission critical. When you think of a successful founder, what you often find is that person is someone who takes on an industry norm and does so to benefit a customer. Maybe also someone who builds a company from the inside outwards with respect to staff, and who then has close personal relationships with those early employees. And those early employees will share the same vision and passion and will be able to carry those values forward. And the founder also will often have what I'd call an owner mindset, as opposed to a custodian or minder mindset, always taking a long-term view. Some other research says that 80% of a company's culture is established by the early leaders or founder, and this has certainly been the case with Ryman. You've heard us talk of Kevin's mantra that it's got to be good enough for mum. This was the early challenge against industry norms, and was quite clearly to benefit the customer, or in our case, the resident. Those of you who followed the company for some time will be aware that our senior executives have extraordinary long tenure of service, which we celebrate, and they were, many of them, the so-called early hires or employees by Kevin and his team to build the company from the inside. So if culture is why we do things the way we do, then our culture of it's got to be good enough for mum has its very roots in Kevin. He's ensured everyone stayed true to that culture, but also encouraged creativity and innovation where it supported the vision. Interestingly, we also find that many of our long-standing stakeholders and suppliers who've grown with the company also strongly identify with that culture. Typically, one would regard an entrepreneur as a person who's out to make as much money as possible and reluctant to let go of the reins. But in reality, Kevin's been pretty much the opposite. He's been a wonderful motivator of others and shown little interest in his personal remuneration. So his contribution has been profound, critical to the establishment of the underlying values and culture of the company, such as the company's purpose and desire to do good in a social sense, and that focus on caring and developing, trusting and supporting long-term relationships. I can advise that with his resignation, Kevin and his family are intent on remaining significant shareholders in the company, and knowing Kev well, he will always be available for advice. The board have spent some considerable time reviewing the skill sets of the directors and the specific skill sets that we require going forwards for the next 5 to 10 years. As a result of this, I'm able to announce that the board will appoint on 1 June Jeff Cumming as a director. We're delighted at this announcement. Jeff's been a long-term, very significant investor in the company and has always been a strong supporter. He's got very extensive governance and executive experience in large corporates, and he brings to the board table a true international view. This is clearly important given our rate of growth. We're also well advanced in making a further appointment with a specific skill set that we believe we require. But we're very focused on only recruiting a director who embraces what we do as a company and thereby our culture. That doesn't mean that we're going to recruit clones of what or anything like that, or recruit for sameness. I can assure you that we just had a couple of days of board meetings and we have pretty diverse range of views around the table from the directors, and these are welcomed. So as a company, we're very focused on care provision and very aware of the critical role we play in the lives of older and vulnerable citizens. Inevitably, from time to time, things don't go as well as we would have liked, and the important thing is that we always should learn from each incident, and this is something that our caregivers do wonderfully well. Their skills and qualities are what actually underpins our got to be good enough for mum value. Clearly, they spend very significant periods of time with our residents, and they display a wide range of skills which constantly impress me when I'm visiting villages. They're empathic in that they understand what the resident is going through. They're patient and flexible. Things don't always go the way you want them to. They have passion for the role and they genuinely display an enjoyment in caring. And I believe they're great communicators and great encouragers to ensure that, in fact, our residents achieve their full capability. And finally, they have a great sense of humour often, not only because laughter is good medicine, but because they and the residents often experience difficult situations which are best coped with some humour. Caregivers have had a major lift in pay rates, and we supported them in achieving this. We also improved their terms of employment in the second half of last year by increasing sick leave from 5 days to 10 days annually in recognition of the fact that there are significant challenges working in the healthcare arena. And one of these days is to be taken as a wellbeing day. Gordon's going to discuss with you some of the feedback we've been getting from our staff generally. But I just want everyone to be aware of the wonderful job that this particular group, the caregivers, undertake and how well they achieve on a continuing basis. So, to summarise, a solid financial result achieved again. Medium-term goal of doubling the profit each year. We did that over the last 5 years, 100 million to over 200 million. And that's the same, of course, as averaging 15% growth in the underlying profit annually. So that goal remains alive and well. A sadness on the resignation of Kevin, but also a celebration of the very significant contribution he's made. A big welcome to Jeff Cumming, who'll be up for election, obviously, at the AGM in July, and a specific acknowledgement of the critical role and skills our caregivers across all 32 villages bring to us. So thank you very much. I hand it over to Gordy.